Okay, guys, so I've got a couple of questions for our panelists. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a moment. But if you have questions, please just write them down, because we're going to give you an opportunity to ask questions in probably 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm going to ask Brad if he'll introduce himself, and then Dom, and then we'll get going with the questions.
Okay, cool. I'm a little bit nervous, so if I could just ask everyone to do a favor. Could you all spin your leg clockwise in your right leg in a clockwise direction? Okay, and now with your right hand, draw the number 6. Hopefully your legs all change direction. And I think that's kind of some of the transformation my brother and I had to go through. So my brother and I co-founded a company called Zoona about 6 years ago. I was asked to introduce it, which is a little bit difficult, but I'll share some insights, not to say anything about us, but just to give some context of where we come from, so you might have some understanding when I chat later. So I'm going to talk in American dollars because we haven't raised any money in South Africa, but we're a business based in Cape Town that exists to help communities thrive. We help people send and receive money when they need to most. Through our various stages, we've raised $250,000 of angel capital. We raised $1 million of grant capital. We raised $7 million of equity capital from our Series A investors. We raised $3 million of debt. We have a $6 million facility for African entrepreneurs, which we only use $1.5 million right now. And we're presently closing a $12 million investment round. All of this has been achieved with my brother and I remaining as the majority shareholders. We all sit on the board. And while we started the business 6 years ago, for the last 5 years, neither of us have been CEOs, because we basically both realized we were just terrible CEOs. So his sole purpose is to serve our customers, and mine is to serve our people, our employees, and that's kind of where we get our energy. I think just a final few points. We have 1 million active consumers, and we move over $30 million each month, and all of that was achieved with one product, a very simple product in a very small market north of here called Zambia, and we're now taking on that $12 million because we finally feel we're good enough to go and scale and see what we can do elsewhere.
So you raised $22 million and you have broken glasses.
That happened today, and I was going to try and fake it, but literally I am blind without them. If I had more time.
Cool, Dom.
Cool. So my name's Dom. I'm a recovering fintech entrepreneur, and I'm now a fintech investor. So I was a founding member of a business called Time, which was a digital banking business, which launched in 2012, and we very quickly scaled. We launched a product called Mobile Money with MTN and Pick n Pay, and within 9 months we'd opened up 1 million bank accounts and we'd processed R1 billion in transactions. So it was an extraordinary success in the South African context. That business got bought out by Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and I now sit in Rand Merchant Investment Holdings, and I look after the fintech portfolio. So I have the extraordinary opportunity to work with some true 10x entrepreneurs. We have 2 generations of founders here. We have the first generation who founded RMB, so we've got Larry Dippenaar, GC Ferreira, and Paul Harris, who still sit on our board and are still members of our investment committee and very involved in what we do. And then we've obviously spawned great businesses like Discovery and like Outsurance, and as an investment team, we get to work very closely with the CEOs of those businesses. So it's an amazing opportunity as a former entrepreneur to actually work with some great entrepreneurs. And all of the lessons you're talking about here, the 12 disciplines, I've personally experienced some of those, seen the downfalls of some of those. I see the intense focus, and I see those disciplines going on in the businesses within our portfolio. And my role here, and the space that you're sitting in here in AlphaCode tonight, has really been designed to help discover the next generation of great financial services businesses. So we exist here to find the next Adrian Gore or the next Willem Roos to start the next Discovery or Outsurance.
Cool, here I am. I'm just kidding. So now you introduce yourselves. Hands up, who is a startup entrepreneur? Okay, couple, quite a lot. Who's a startup funder? Couple of hands. Who's a scale-up, an established, fast-growing business? Who's a scale-up funder? Okay, quite a couple of those. Who's here for drinks and wants us to stop talking now? Okay. Who's a fintech entrepreneur? How many fintech entrepreneurs? Okay, we've got 1 or 2. Okay, cool. Thank you for that, guys. Now, Brad, I want to dive into one of the particular disciplines, building an A team, because we find that to be a particularly difficult task and pain point. So tell me, over your years, what have been the greatest difficulties, obstacles to building an A team?
I think one of them is probably, as an entrepreneur, getting to really understand yourself. We have tremendous strengths, and I think you have to go and start a business and drive one forward. But about a year and a half ago, we really felt we weren't scaling to the degree we wanted to. And one of the exercises we did is we took my brother and I's sort of Myers-Briggs characteristics, and we just sent the words out to the company. At that point, I think we were about 70 employees. And it was, which of these words, which were our strengths and weaknesses, describe the culture in this company. And 86% of our strengths were ingrained in the culture, but so were 52% of the weaknesses. And it was just such an eye-opener that we were actually a total bottleneck to that scale that we were striving for. We've been very good around this. Right from day one, we appointed a CEO, we appointed a CFO, so we had other people in the business, but we overlaid their personality characteristics over ours, and essentially we'd hired ourselves in so many ways. So the same weaknesses were just amplified. So I guess the big challenge then was trying to bring people in, because I firmly believe you must focus on your strengths and just be aware of your weaknesses. You can't really change. So we did bring people in to address them, but being very strong characters, the people weren't able to generate enough relevance or influence and delivery. So we then really went on a very deliberate recruiting strategy to bring in 2 key hires, which took 9 months. And the impact they've had on the business has just been phenomenal. And then I suppose maybe I'll share one more challenge, and I think it's an important one for, I see a lot of startup entrepreneurs. You will get to a stage where the people that were in the trenches with you, that were fighting in the trenches with you, just don't scale with the business. And it's really tough conversations to let go of your early champions. And we've had quite a few of them, and it's really difficult, but I would strongly encourage you to do that, because you always go down to the lowest common denominator. And as you bring in new A players, they will demand excellence, and they don't care what happened yesterday. They want to know you're going forward at a rapid rate of knots. Just some insights.
Yeah, great lessons. Thank you. And I don't know how you found it, but most entrepreneurs struggle with this concept of bringing in senior talent over time, particularly because of affordability. I mean, hiring experienced guys that might be at Sasol with share options, or F&B or R&B. How did you solve the kind of affordability issue when it was time to bring in more senior talent?
I think one thing I think it's key to any entrepreneur is revenue, and cash solves all sin. So we've always been incredibly focused around driving revenue, driving customer experience. Anything you do must be about creating value for customers to generate money, because you don't want to go and raise capital on a down round. And you certainly do need to pay employees as they come in. So every employee in our company has stock options. The top critical hires have significant stock options. We do cash bonus sign-on fees. We really appeal to everything. And one thing we do is woo their partners incredibly well. We pride ourselves on having a balanced lifestyle now. We were very crazy in the beginning, but we're very focused on the wellness of our people, and the fact that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think just creating a really cool culture and vibe is critically important. And our greatest source of talent has been, I don't want to use the word failed entrepreneurs, because that's not the right word, but 90% of businesses fail. And a huge percentage of that failure has got nothing to do with the entrepreneur themselves. And the lessons they've learned in failing are massive. So our best hires are experienced entrepreneurs who have done it, but respect that any business is not just about innovation. It's about innovation and sustaining an ability to deliver consistent value.
Cool. What do you, if you were to pinpoint one thing that you wish you fixed earlier or you didn't get wrong in the first place, what would it be?
I think from my mind, it was understanding that diversity is not a need, it's a strength. And I see diversity in a whole range of things, from whether you're an extrovert to an introvert, to whether you're a J or an whatever it is. So just the ability to understand that diversity and diverse teams are so much more impactful and so much better than non-diverse teams.
Cool, thank you. Okay, Dom, over to you. What hat do you want to put on?
I'll put on the investor hat for now.
Okay, so sitting on the outside, I think you mentioned earlier on, you've looked at over 150 potential investees. You've banked one of those. Tell me why. Why one?
There's so many reasons. For me, there's three big obstacles to businesses getting funding. And the first one is that businesses don't generate sales. It's the number one reason. Guys spend a lot of time focusing on really sexy tech, or they focus on really sexy product, or they focus on some really sexy concept, but they cannot make it marketable and they cannot monetize it.
So you're not into this like free is a business model thing?
No, I'm not into the build it and they will come. I'm really not. And obviously, given the space that I'm in with financial services, you've really got to understand distribution, but that applies to any industry. And I see a lot of naivety there, and guys not really understanding the dynamics of the industry they're in and how you actually get your product out. So that's the number one issue for me. The second issue comes to actually raising capital. The first thing is entrepreneurs are exceptionally bad at choosing their partners. I'm not talking about the partners in their business necessarily, but their early round partners. So the one classic mistake I see is getting friends and family to fund them, which creates major problems later down the line. The amount of guys that I have conversations with where they say, we would love to exit our early angels, but we can't because they're family members, and it creates massive problems for other investors coming in. The second scenario is often entrepreneurs are chasing valuation rather than choosing good partners. And it's the one thing that I implore entrepreneurs to not do. Choosing a bad partner because of money will cost you so much in the long run. I mean, my fellow panel member here has chosen an extraordinary partner. I have the highest level of respect for one of his partners that's in that business. And choosing the right partner will make or break your business. So those for me are the two things that I cannot stress enough.
So you've mentioned quite a couple of things on the negative side. Let's maybe turn to the positive now. Like, of the best entrepreneurs you've seen, what have been the standout characteristics in those guys?
So the first one is, you've said it, hyper-focus. Every amazing entrepreneur that we've come across has been hyper-focused, knows the key metrics in their business, at any point in time can tell you exactly what makes this business tick, and is able to shut down options. Because entrepreneurs, most of the entrepreneurs I meet have never met an idea that they don't like. So the first thing I love is when you meet a guy who says, this is what my business is doing, this is why we're going to crack the market, and this is why my team is going to nail it. So that's the first thing. Yep. The second thing is charisma. And charisma comes in many different forms. You don't have to be a big out there personality, but you have to be selling a story, and you have to be able to get people up in the morning for something greater than yourself. And the third thing is they have to have ambition. If you are not waking up to change the world in some way, then for me, there's no point in going through the heartache of starting a business. And that third reason is very seldom about money. The greatest entrepreneurs I've met are not in it for the money.
Cool. So I love that Tim Cook quote. He says, at Apple, we say no to great ideas all the time, just because we want to focus on more great ideas. And if we say yes to every other great idea, we will not execute on the great ideas we have picked. So, yeah. Okay, if you had a magic wand, you could fix one thing in every business that comes across your path. What would your magic wand do?
Would get them to choose their partners and sort out their shareholding issues.
So time travel built in. Back 3 years, fix the partners. Okay, cool.
And just in that, just understand the need for and to stop the endless capital raisings. Because I see a lot of businesses who are wasting time because they're in constant capital raising.
Professional capital raises.
It's a nightmare.
Which, by the way, often comes because we don't want to dilute that much, so we raise less capital, and that just means we become professional capital raisers.